Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the Brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants. Welcome back to Season 2 of the podcast, brethren. This is Rhit Moore, past master and current secretary of Fort Worth 148.
Grant Gates, current junior warden with 148.
Billy Hamilton, senior steward with 148.
And Gabriel Jagush, master mason with Fort Worth 148.
It's good to be back, boys. I hope y'all had a good holidays.
Oh, it was pretty good. I'm excited about Season 2.
Yes.
As am I. Hopefully no hurricanes this year, guys. Keep your fingers crossed. Don't need another one of those coming in.
Yeah, we got the whole gang here today. That's good. I don't think we've all four done a podcast together, have we?
No, we haven't.
We did. We did one with Billy.
Didn't we?
Well, we did him as a guest.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun too.
Yes, but not in the way that we thought it would. Not in the way that we planned on today.
Yeah. No, because he came to fill in for you, and now, I mean, we couldn't do it without him, so.
Well, he is a little bit smarter than I am, so I understand.
Well, he's been a Mason longer than any of us.
That is true.
We needed the experience.
But not active. That's the kicker.
Well, I know it was a great holiday for me. I for Masons of Texas, I know we lost a really big giant with past Grandmaster Leonard Harvey, and that was a bit of a bummer. But that's one thing we all got in common. We will meet our maker at one point or another. But Grand Lodge won't be the same without him. He could always come out on that stage and offer some wisdom that would kind of clear the muddy waters. Not many like him at all.
Probably not.
Mm.
So, guys, do we want to start off with some, discussion questions?
Let's do that.
Okay, so this one actually is from the Texas Freemasons Facebook group, and it was posted by the administrator, Kyle Wahlquist, right? And the reason why I picked this question to have it as a discussion subject is because Rhit got involved in the comments. So Kyle Wahlquist asked, I have always heard and believed that a lodge meeting, when opened, automatically closes at midnight. I'm having trouble finding the article this is related to in the law book. Can anyone shed some light on where to find this in the law? And now, Rhit, you got involved in the comments, so tell us what went down and what kind of the end conclusion is there.
Well, I think the first thing that I want to point out is something Kyle called me on was making assumptions, and that's he was absolutely right. There was part of that I was making assumptions on, and that's not good. You don't do that. The law, we follow it, which we went through. I mean, I searched at PDF and hard copy looking for anything stating that it closes automatically at midnight or when a lodge, has to be closed. Because I was told the other day
to close it, right?
Well, that's my understanding is you had to close it. But again, it's not in the law book that says the lodge has to be closed at this time. It says you can't be open on Sunday, which, Kyle and I got in the discussion. If you're called off to refreshment, is the lodge technically open? And then even it says in the law book, you can't meet. So if a lodge is at refreshment, but you're not at the meeting, there's a lot of technicalities in there that need clarification. Not that that's a real issue, but.
Well, I heard an interesting example at the lodge leadership from Brad. I believe Brad Kohinke gave us his example where they were voting on a member and the ballot box kept getting stuffed. And the worshipful master said, we'll keep this lodge open as long as possible and close it, even when it reached midnight. conclusion that was reached there is that it could go all the way until Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Then had to be closed for
Right,
Sunday.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah, Billy, you were in there with me. That's right. So, was that Brad?
Right.
I believe.
Yeah, I believe it. Right. So, and that's an interesting concept, almost like there's an expiration date on the lodge, so at a certain
Well, and
point, it automatically gets closed.
well, and that's
the law.
the law book says nothing like that.
Right. I found nothing in the law book that mentions those and then you have the issue of a lodge of sorrow. Many lodges open it to Masonic year and then put out so at any point you can go do a Masonic funeral if necessary. An interesting thing that I think would warrant some clarification maybe from the Committee on Work.
Yeah, I think ultimately a Grand Master's decision could clarify that, or you just clarify it in the law because it doesn't state in the law that you go to refreshment at 11:59 and everybody leaves and come back on Monday, call it to labor and get back to work. Is that permissible?
I'm trying to remember what I was talking with somebody, and it was at one of the big get-togethers where there's a whole bunch of people talking to each other all at once. So I'm trying to remember who it was, but they were saying that they did for they had a bunch of EAs and stuff like that, including people that they were doing courtesy work for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying, hey, we're just going to do a bunch of EAs, and we have a couple fellowcrafts and stuff like that. So what they did was they opened at, 6 or whatever, and they went all the way until 11:30, closed the lodge, and then at 12:01 opened a lodge and then kept going and then closed.
Yeah, see, I think that's all done from, people saying a lodge closes, you have to close at 11:59 because I was told I was under that impression for all the way up until last year.
Mm-hmm.
That then I was told that you have to close it Saturday at 11:59. But again, there's nothing in the law book that states that specifically.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah, it really is weird. I mean, because I searched every keyword I could think of: automatically, automatic, midnight, night. I mean, it's not in there, and I wasn't the only one that came to that conclusion. And Grandmaster's decisions, again, only touched on it when a Masonic funeral was involved.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, because it had Lodge of Sorrow.
Yeah, it had a specific question about, and I think this Grandmaster's decision was pre-Lodge of Sorrow. Maybe it was like 30s or something like that, maybe 40s. But they had a funeral that went over to where they had to close the lodge on Sunday. But Grandmaster said,
"See, yeah, that'd be kind of different, though.
Yeah,
that's not your average lodge meeting." And conclusion then is nobody still knows, or am I reading into that wrong?
Well, what it boiled down to was that does open and meeting mean the same thing in our laws? Because it says in the no lodge can meet on Sunday, that there's no Masonic meeting held on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And then what constitutes being at refreshment? Because for me, that meant that a lodge was still open but at refreshment. But again, there's nothing in the law that states that. That might be a Committee on Work clarification. And then
would that go to the Jurisprudence Committee?
The jurisprudence would be the open meeting. Does open and meeting imply the same thing? So can a lodge be open but at refreshment but not meeting? Mm-hmm. You follow what I'm saying? Because yes. Like Kyle said, it takes people to actually be there for it to be a meeting.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't say in the law that the lodge cannot be open.
So you just call to refreshment at 11:59 11:59 on Saturday, and then at 12:01 a.m. on Monday, you just call it from refreshment?
In theory, exactly. Is that permissible? And
Okay.
there's only a few scenarios you can think of that would be, actually utilized. But again, it's just one of those, when you're learning your law, these are important questions to know, because we don't want to assume about what it means.
Right.
So I think in the end, the Grand Master would, that could be posed as a Grand Master question. He could defer to those committees, and then get his answer back to where that could be clarified.
Okay.
So maybe in the case of some areas, they're using it as a tradition, but it's not, since it's not law, it will vary from lodge to lodge.
Yeah. There was a lot of good information posted about the way things were done traditionally. And, I think there were quite a few scholars that wrote about it closing at 11:59. But again, it's not in our laws that we're governed by. So, it's just one of those things that could be clarified. And, we've been working on assumption all this time, but there's nothing in the law that says that. And I scoured the Grand Master's decisions again. Nothing in there.
Wow.
So, yep.
There could be something we're having trouble finding. We can put that out there too. They're hard to get through sometimes.
No, that's no doubt. That's why I love Facebook, because there was quite a few people, that came to the same conclusion as I did. And, those are good questions. We need to know the law, and we need to clarify that kind of stuff. If it's me, I'm going to err on the side of safety and close at 11:59 at this point. But again, there's nothing in the law book that says you have to. Just don't be there on Sunday.
Just don't be there. I like it.
Yeah. So,
right.
What's your next question, Gabe?
So the next question that I had was, and this is something that I saw, it's a question that I came up with in backwards to an answer that I gave to somebody on something. It was just basically to clarify assumptions, now that we're on the subject of not assuming things.
Yes.
Is it against the obligations to have Masonic tattoos? And
What?
obviously this is jurisdictional. This is based off of my experience in Texas. So if you were in, probably not in the United States, since we all use Preston Webb and it's all the same ritual, but if you're outside of the United States, your ritual obligations might be different. But no, it is not against the obligations to have Masonic tattoos. I saw
that post, and
Yeah.
someone said that they were going to get one until they took the obligation, and they found out they couldn't. And I was thinking about that, because I've seen the EA done in 4 different states now, and I've never heard anything mentioned about tattoos.
Right. And so because most Masonic tattoos are square and compasses, or, like a skull of some kind, or maybe some of the, some of the emblems from the degrees, right?
Mm-hmm.
But none of those are any of the secrets of ancient Freemasonry, right?
Yeah.
The secrets are jurisdictional disclaimer here, but for the most part, they're just the passwords and modes of recognition. And that's it. Not the signs, not all this, most everything is fair game. In fact, I know that there is somebody out there, because I've seen the pictures of it, who has a tattoo of a candidate who is prepared for the Entered Apprentice initiation, right?
Ooh.
Which, that's kind of like, okay, that's out there. But it's still not against the obligation by any means, because you're not giving away the secrets, right? You're just showing, you're putting emblems on yourself that people put on bumper stickers, right? So,
Right.
I saw a comment that was like, "Hey, I got a tattoo of the third degree emblem, and even though it was against the obligations, I earned my way to it, so my worshipful master was cool with it." I'm like, that's not how that works, And to me, and obviously, if you're operating outside of the network of regular Freemasonry, if you are in an irregular rite or in a clandestine lodge, then yeah, you might have some obligations that restrict tattoos, But I really can't think of any regular Masonic body that prevents it.
No.
And you make a good point there about the bumper emblems, right? The Grand Lodge has a booth at some events where they sell those, and if the Grand Lodge is selling those and you're supposed to display those on your car, how can it be against the obligation to display it on your body?
Yeah, I've never heard good reasoning, although I've seen a lot of people that disapprove of Masonic tattoos. But that just all comes down a lot of times to religious aspects and beliefs, or just like cultural and societal norms. Because in Texas, we were one of the last states to be kind of tattoo accepting. I don't say that in a Masonic sense, even though it is true. It was a whole society. I know tattoos were very taboo in my family.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's still pretty taboo in my family, even though my brother, 2 out of 3 of the boys are now tattooed, and my parents still hate it so much. I remember when I was preparing for initiation and everything like that, I was freaked out because I was like, hey, these guys are going to see my tattoos and stuff like that. What if they're not cool with it? Da, 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 da. And then I met Joey Rios, and he's covered to head to toe in tattoos, and I was like, never mind, I'm fine.
I'm good.
Yeah, because he's even got tattoos on his hands. So I was just like, okay, whatever, I'm fine. But for anyone listening that doesn't know, I'm very heavily tattooed, so I was just like very nervous about that. So,
Gabe, I find it weird that your family is so against it, because I know when I went and got my second tattoo, fake ID, that was a lot of fun. When I went and got my second tattoo, my dad went with me, and he got his 6th or 7th. Brother got his 3rd, and we all got him at the same time. It was
A family affair.
yeah, it's just one of those things. It's a kind of a traditional. I'm from a kind of traditional Hispanic family, and it's just not cool. We don't do that.
So Billy kind of brought up an interesting point in the text. So say comes in and has swastika tattoos.
If a candidate has swastika tattoos,
Right.
huh,
Yeah.
that's
So I know someone who actually is. Long story short, he went to prison for trying to kill his abusive stepfather. Um, a weird situation. I know that the prison part itself may keep him out of Masonry, but he expressed interest to me in joining Masonry. And
yeah.
my first thought is, with those tattoos, you're going to have to answer a lot of questions.
Yeah, especially since we're a lodge filled with younger guys, and younger guys tend to be more progressive, and it's just one of those things. If you whip off your shirt and there's a couple of swastikas, everyone that's not a Klansman is going to be kind of skeptical, right?
Kinda, yeah.
Just kind of,
Okay.
vaguely.
Yeah, it would be a big old no for me, man. It would disrupt peace and harmony at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? If one brother established in your lodge that has a problem with it, which you should have more than one, can't let that slide.
Yeah. And it's really unfortunate, and I feel badly for this guy, right? I don't know him, but I still feel badly for him because a lot of times when you go to prison, you kind of have to join a gang.
Yeah, you do. Right.
And it's,
I say that like I know, but
you
that's
know,
what I've heard.
and you get marked as a consequence. And it,
Right. Well,
you
and
know,
that's exactly how, when I asked him about it, that's what he told me was he's like, hey, I did it really because I needed to protect myself in some way.
mhm.
And so that's the group I joined, and I did it then. And now, I'm looking for a way to remove them,
Mhm.
but even when you have stuff like that removed, there's still scarring that's left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his best bet is to get them removed and then have the scarring tattooed over.
Right.
Yeah,
with,
or do a full cover up if they're not too big, something that can blend them in.
no. How big are we
They're pretty
talking?
big.
Like probably hand sized.
One of them takes up like a big section of
Oh,
his.
so it's like a straight up
of
like
his left
American
breast.
history X sized one. Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, geez, that's not good. Yeah, so like he just has to get that whole section of his chest done in black, pretty much.
Right.
Like there's no
Yeah. Go
like,
for a tribal.
yeah, it's
giant
like,
black
hey,
box.
like I just have this giant black splotch on my chest. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
If
I
a
mean,
brother
sometimes
went and
you
got
screw up
those
with tattoos,
removed,
but
like if a candidate went and got those removed, absolutely go for it. And like, yeah, he might have some swastika shaped scarring, but you know what? Like to me, the scarring is, like that's indicative of like that's somebody that wants to make changes.
Right.
So
noteworthy. That being said, if anyone knows a good Mason who's a tattoo artist, the one I got with a fake ID is now illegible because I was really chunky when I got it, and then I lost a bunch of weight, so it's kind of terrible looking, and it's ready to be covered up. So
good stuff.
y'all email me.
So now that we've talked about tattoos and stuff like that, let's tackle the subject at hand. So season 2, episode 1 is about getting together at Grand Lodge. Right? It's the Grand Communication, the Grand Lodge of Texas 182nd Grand Annual Communication is the official title.
182. We're getting up.
That's
We're
pretty
getting up
cool.
there. We're about to be 200.
I'm excited about that. But
No.
so Rhit, break it down for us real quick. What the heck is the Grand Lodge Communication?
It's just a lodge. It's basically a lodge. They open it up with a little different wording because it's a grand. Oh, you're opening up Grand Lodge, and it talks about what constitutes Grand Lodge. But ultimately, we're there to kind of put it on a lodge level to change our bylaws and elect new officers. That's the two main things that get done. You get inundated with reports, and most people just can't stand them. And there are a few that are kind of redundant, but most of them are pretty important. And a good example is like the report on, oh Lord, it's drawn away from me now. Recognition. What's the name of that committee?
Fraternal Relations?
Yes, Fraternal Relations Report. So typically they get up there and they say, so-and-so's asked us to request recognition. They meet all the stuff, and it's real mundane, but that we vote on for like Prince Hall. And so some of those reports from year to year have huge, huge implications on what goes on in this fraternity, and we vote on their approval. That's essentially how Grand Masters decisions get voted on, is through a report. And I think that one's even submitted as written. You have to pick it up and read it. They don't read through all that. So it is an extremely important event for Masons of Texas. Of course, past masters and lodge line officers are the ones that vote. But at the same time, I think it's important for master Masons to go, especially if they're aspiring to go through the line, but also to go down there and to
Just
talk.
have fun.
Now, that's a whole nother subject, but I think that you can, as a master Mason, influence brothers and how they think on issues. Even though you can't vote, you may very well be able to have a discussion that influences somebody to where they see it from a different angle, and things can progress in the right direction.
I
trying to think of
remember
words.
I remember sitting next to you in Grand Lodge last year, and we were talking about how how you felt about that vote and how I felt about that vote and stuff, and that was kind of interesting because like I'm just the non-officer schmuck with no voting power, so I'm just like like that's kind of cool to get involved and active and stuff like that at that level. So you
Yeah.
said that line officers can vote. Can all the line officers vote?
Well, it works through the worshipful master. So, yeah. So in theory, it should go that they issue comes up and you vote yay or nay, and they all three take a straw poll and majority wins. So if the two wardens want to vote one way and the worshipful master another, the worshipful master should cast how the wardens want to vote.
Okay.
But a lot of times lodges have just one person there or a proxy that makes those decisions on his own. And when you hit that button for your lodge vote, which is your three officers, that counts as 3 votes.
Mm-hmm. So they're voting
So
as a lodge then.
you got it. So when that worshipful master hits that ticker for yes, when he electronically votes, he just voted 3 times for yes in the affirmative, whatever it is, which I think is great because if you look at numbers at Grand Lodge, every year I've been like 8 or 9, past masters and lodges are pretty equally balanced. Given any other year, one may have, up to 100 more votes than the other. So things are very balanced.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the energy of the officers that see how things need to be revamped, and you've got the wisdom of the past masters. If you choose to say
If
that,
you choose to look at it that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm an optimist.
So can anyone go to the Grand Lodge communication?
Any master mason
Any master
can
mason. There we
sit.
go.
Yep, can sit in the Grand Lodge. Now, as an EA, I would go and, because they have plenty to do outside. So when we're in session, you can't come in. But, that's a total of maybe over the 3 days that it's happening, 8 to 10 hours that we're in Lodge, maybe a little more. So there's times you can come in, and then a lot of times you can sit out in the museum and explore.
Yep.
So
or just explore Waco.
Yeah.
That doesn't take long.
Sorry,
all right, so
sorry, Waco brethren.
yeah.
We're just good. It's just good natured fun. We love y'all.
Good natured fun. Yeah. First year going to Grand Lodge, and I'm going to go as a voting officer. Writ some basic stuff that I literally am asking right now because I don't know. What's your expected dress down at Grand Lodge? What can you expect walking in having never seen it before?
Well, we expect
Communication.
you to show up naked.
Well,
You specifically.
You ain't getting in. No, don't go any less than business casual. But, suit and ties, certainly, because you may find, if you're a past master or a sitting worshipful master, you may find a reason that you need to go up on stage and talk. And you don't want to be walking up there in blue jeans and a t-shirt. You want to be representing your lodge and yourself well.
I think that I'm a big fan of pushing for Texas formal as a minimum standard of dress in lodges, and the way Texas formal is, dress shirt, no tie, blazer or sport coat of some kind, and like dark jeans and boots. I feel like
If they're starched,
that's a really safe sort of casual look.
Yeah. But you will see guys in overalls. I mean, it doesn't really matter what you wear as long as you're there. But if you've got the clothes, wear something nice, but somewhat
there you
comfortable. Somewhat comfortable because there's a lot of sitting.
You guys know that's going to be hard on me, right? Because I walk around in circles like a crazy person pretty much about 80% of my life.
Well, and you can also kind of time things to where, they'll let you know the next 30, 40 minutes of what's coming up. So you can hop up and go walk around Grand Lodge for a minute and come back for something really important.
Cool. I'm sincerely looking forward to it. It's going to be a new experience. So I'm here to learn today, gentlemen, from the wisdom of our past master.
No, it's a lot of fun. I mean, you see those guys getting up there, past grandmasters and, brothers from the fraternity. You've got a guy that keeps us on parliamentary procedure, and he'll shut it down too. He'll come out there and be like, whoa, 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 point of order here. Back the truck up.
One of the things that I've always loved about even when the grandmasters come up on stage to talk or propose things, you'll have I think last year, the sitting grandmaster came up to the stage, and a couple other past grands came up for other various things, and each one of them said, I'm brother so-and-so, and I am a past master of lodge so-and-so. They didn't say, I'm the past grand master or I'm the sitting grand master. They were just like, I'm just the past master from this lodge, which I love that.
That's a good thing you brought that up, because that's actually protocol. If you don't do that, they will stop you and make you go back. So if you do go up to speak, you have to state your name. You have to state that you are a past master and what lodge it is, and then you can talk.
Can only past masters speak?
Only past masters are sitting masters. So if you're a junior warden or senior warden, you cannot get up there and talk, or just a master mason.
Is that restricted to proposals only or talking entirely?
Everything. You can't propose anything unless you're a member of Grand Lodge, which is past master or sitting sitting master is a representative. But he would propose it from the lodge. So either a lodge or a past master can propose resolutions, and then to speak, you have to be a past master or a sitting master. And you have to go up and do it in that order. And you're not allowed, like if you're a past master of multiple lodges, you only list one.
Yeah.
But you have to state that. And I've seen senior wardens and others get up there to talk, and they won't let them. They get pushed off stage, very brotherly. But
Godspeed, buddy.
And of course the Grand West, it does the harumps. Ho 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 no.
Which, speaking of, I hope that there's one certain past master who I hope goes up and speaks, because last year he yelled about a lot of stuff and it was awesome. For anyone that was there at Grand Lodge session last year, you know who I'm talking about. It was amazing. It was the gentleman who did not need to use a microphone.
I was going to say, he's the guy that pushed the mic back out of his face, and you could hear him clear as day.
It was terrifying.
He's very passionate.
I love it.
For the newer Masons out there, this was something I learned this year too, when there's a lot of reference to the Grand West, and that is all the past masters. And that's how they vote, as really that's talking about them voting as a block, right? Am I correct in that, Rhit?
Well, the Grand West is the lodge or lodges and past masters. So any voting, anybody that can vote at Grand Lodge makes up the Grand West. So in a sense, yes, it is the past masters, but it also includes those. So it's just basically the voting body of Grand Lodge.
Okay, so I'm still learning about that.
And now you're not so you can be part of the voting Grand West as a sitting master, but you're still not a member of Grand Lodge until you're a past master, right?
Correct. You are a representative of Grand Lodge as a line officer,
right?
Worshipful Senior Junior Warden.
Yeah, and that's something that we've touched on the show in the past. If you are a Master Mason in the state of Texas, you are not a member of the Grand Lodge of Texas. You are just a member of your lodge, which is under the Grand Lodge of Texas. You do not become a member of the Grand Lodge until you're a past master. But we've already mentioned that. I was going to ask, how does making a proposal at the Grand Lodge communication work? Like we've mentioned that only past masters can get up to talk, but what's involved in the actual mechanics of making a proposal? Like from, ground up?
That's actually it's a little tricky in a sense, but not if you're thinking about doing it. Like if you see something in our law, like for me, a good one that may come from me or somebody else in the future is doing away with certificates of good standing. Our dues card is exactly the same thing. So I would write up a resolution which starts with whereases, which means, whereas our dues card serves the same purpose as the certificate of good standing, whereas this would save a substantial amount of money. So basically, your reasoning why you're proposing this. I therefore resolve that the Grand Lodge of Texas, duly do away with the certificate of good standing form, so and so. And you have to get real detailed. And you also would have to go through the law, and everywhere it mentions certificate of good standing, you would have to reference that in your resolution and strike it out.
Right. So you have to get really legalistic and detailed then.
Exactly. For something as big as that, that would be a really big undertaking. But there's other small changes, that like when we approved the carrying of weapons, that was just a few changes in the law book.
A few
And
changes in the law book and a lot of hurt feelings. Yeah. It's good stuff.
So
I liked that so much.
when you complete writing this up, you've got to have it turned in. I think it's June now, but it used to be like May 5th or May 8th. It was a weird date.
Oh, so
but
it's like months in advance then.
Yes.
Okay,
way,
so
way in advance.
it's not like a couple months in advance. It's like a whole year then, basically. Okay.
I think it's 7 months or at least 6 months in advance, because it in turn, you send it down to Grand Lodge. It in turn gets sent to the proper committee. So something like that may go to various committees, but mainly to jurisprudence. And they would look over the resolution and make sure it's in proper wording, and then make sure you touched on all the articles that need to be touched on. So say I missed something referring to the certificate of standing, they would say, hey, they'd kick it back and say, you need to include this. I'd rewrite it up, resubmit it. They would go through the same exact process. If anything needs to be fixed, it would. And then I get the final okay, and it goes in the resolutions that get sent out to the lodges and printed in our little pamphlet. And the submitter presents it at Grand Lodge.
So you're not going to just stand up and say, I want to do this, and have people listen. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And in a body that large, you can't have it operating.
You'd probably get kicked out pretty fast.
Yeah, I think you can make resolutions from the floor, but it takes like a 2/3 vote, and I could be mistaken, but more than likely, if you did, it'd get tabled anyways. But yeah, that's the whole point, is to give us time to research these changes, because some of them can be drastic and not really imply that in the law change.
Right. Well, it's like that one. There was one resolution to revert back the law book back to how it was, a certain number of years ago, and that seems relatively innocuous at first, and then all of a sudden it's like we've got language prohibiting communist party membership, right? And like, all political differences aside, like it's not appropriate for the Grand Lodge to dictate what political activities a person can and cannot partake of, because we're supposed to be apolitical and non-sectarian, right? So that has some serious implications. So
no, that was a great example, and if I remember right, that was amended on the floor to go back, because somebody submitted a resolution written up to take the process back to where you have trials, Masonic trials in the lodge, as opposed to Grand Lodge handle them. And if I remember right, that was amended on the floor to go revert back to the old Title V in its entirety, which we approved and had huge implications, like you said.
Whoops.
Added in language and even took some out, because it used to be a Masonic offense to talk negatively about someone's race, religion, sexual orientation, creed,
Well,
to where, if you said
the
something
term,
bad about that.
I was actually going to bring this up in our reading of Grand Lodge Law at our next stated, which I still will, but the term Masonic offense is no longer the correct term, Mr. Moore.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it disciplinary
it's-
violation?
Masonic disciplinary violation.
Hey,
Yes,
I
sir.
pay attention sometimes.
Someone listens
I
when I
thought-
talk. Yay!
I thought it was Masonic boo-boo. You did a Masonic boo-boo.
That's a big old Masonic boo-boo right there.
Are we not
All right.
using the legalistic term party foul?
The worshipful master has to catch
Why? And I don't know why they changed that, but whatever.
I want a really raunchy table lodge where part of the ritual is bringing up brothers on charges for party fouls.
Make you pay.
Brother Billy left half a beer, got warm, and he just poured it out instead of finishing it. No,
How dare
party
he?
foul. How
How
dare he? He must buy the lodge a 30-pack. Amen.
To kind of complete the process out, though, because bringing up amendments is a good point. Because, once I present my change to Grand Lodge, someone can come up and amend that resolution. And then the amendment is voted on by the Grand West. And if it's approved, then you vote on the resolution as amended.
And that's dangerous sometimes.
Yes, it can be. But if you see a resolution that's being proposed as a member of Grand Lodge, you have the right to write now the word's getting amendment. You have the right to write an amendment, and that doesn't have to be submitted months in advance. You should get it to them as quick as possible. If you have it months in advance, great. If you have it basically the day of Grand Lodge, you got to get it to that committee report behind the Grand East in that little secret corridor. You got to get it to the proper committee so they can make sure it's in proper form and you can present it. So you can't amend things on the floor there on the fly. So keep that in mind too.
Right on. So let's see. I'm trying to figure out physically, like, how does voting work, right? So we've talked about who can vote and, what it means to vote as the representative of a lodge and, Grand East versus Grand West. How does voting actually work?
Okay. So I don't mean to be a ball hog here, but I got to go back and tell how we used to vote compared to how we do now.
Please do.
Because it was something else. And of course, it's not always cool in December in Texas. So used to be, they did show of hands. So a resolution would come up and you do a show of hands. And if it was close, they might make you stand up a couple times and try to tell. But if they couldn't, if it was too close, they would tile the doors, shut the doors off. You couldn't come in, you couldn't leave. You had this little booklet with numbered pieces of paper. Everybody got number 1. Okay, great. Write down yes or no. Then you pass that to the left, like an offering into the offering tray. They take it down to the bottom floor and count all the ballots.
So what
Paper
you're saying is
ballots by
this is
hand.
some form of my personal hell, right?
Oh, dude, I remember one year it was so hot. It was so hot. And they closed those doors and the fan and the breeze shut off. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrendous. Usually took about 45 minutes for them to count it. And they tiled the whole time. And you'd get your answer. So thankfully now we have the little electronic voting device to where you vote yay or nay and we get instantaneous results.
Wow.
It's the little clickers, right?
It was genius because, like, when you vote on the Grand Junior Warden, you have to win by a majority of votes. So say 5 guys are running and 2,000 people are voting. So you have to have 1,001 votes, basically. You got to have the majority of votes. So if everybody's kind of even, the top 2 bottom drop off, and then you vote again. Until somebody gets a clear majority, which those doors might be shut for an hour and a half.
So When we went to Grand Chapter and Grand Council, we saw the paper balloting method used. And that was interesting because every single time without fail, there were people who had their votes invalidated because they used the wrong number of paper.
Yes.
Or they had somehow or other messed up the vote. And so the vote would change every single time it would be done. So one time it would be, 378. And so you would go by half of that to vote approval. The next time it'd be like 384. And it was crazy to see the old paper method being used.
It was also nerve-wracking.
Well, did they do the credentials
Right.
report before you vote to where they'd say this many people are here voting capacity?
Yes. Yeah, they did.
And then, that way you don't have more votes than there are people there.
What a curious possibility.
It's a really cool process, but I am glad it is gone.
Surely no one would leave the room and allow other people to vote for them. But no, it was interesting because
having to hold their hand up, All right, hold your hands up for yays. Now y'all don't move for about 10 minutes while we count.
oh gosh, no thanks.
That would be awesome.
Right.
Well, and I would say probably 70 to 80% of the time it was a clear majority one way or another. So, like, say we're voting on redistricting some lodges, it was easy to do a show of hands real quick. Everybody's voting one way, and it just was a formality.
Yeah, and I think when I was there last year, we had some votes that were still show of hands, but it was just super trivial stuff like you were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what the issue was or what year it was, but there was a Grand Master that there was a vote that it was too close to call. And he made the call, and it was like, woo, it made some people a little hot under the collar, because I'll have to do some research, but it was a somewhat touchy subject and probably should have been paper ballot, but they chose not to. All that's gone now, though, because we vote everything electronically and you get clear results.
Yes.
Do they blow it up on like a big screen so you can see like little columns building for votes, kind of like on a game show? Really?
Yeah,
you don't see them. You don't
Oh,
see them building, but they'll release the bar chart once the vote is done.
Yeah.
So you can't see the vote climbing by any. But I do remember sitting back and waiting for it to like show up on the screen.
That's slightly less entertaining, but still enjoyable.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was going to look like C-SPAN when they have the vote in the House of Representatives or the Senate.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be cool.
See it going each way. I'm glad I'm not the only one who watches C-SPAN.
I leave it on sometimes as background noise. Which is not the most intelligent way to watch it, but So, what important proposals and Grandmaster's recommendations are we voting on this year? I guess what Rhit or Grant, Billy, anything that stuck out to you in particular?
Prince Hall recognition.
Yeah, that's
definitely.
Saturday.
That's the big one. That's the big one.
That's gonna be a good time.
That's coming in a committee report too. That is not in our listed of resolutions. Like, I was just pulling out the book that they sent us.
I noticed that. I read the book the other night, and I didn't see it in there. I did note the news that Prince Hall approved their resolution in Grand Lodge.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
see, that got a lot of guys hot under the collar last time because they said Grand Lodge was hiding it or, like not being transparent with what they're voting on. And they should have advertised that. And it's like, it has never been the tradition of Grand Lodge to put out those kind of committee reports prior to Grand Lodge. That's one of those things that you have to be there. And that's why it's so important, because it shouldn't be their duty to inform us on every detail that we're going to get when we get there. All the committee reports and all that. We've got resolutions that are law changes, and the committee reports that are done orally. You got to be there and you got to listen. That's the tricky part.
Paying attention.
So,
who would do that?
I know the Grand Master, everywhere he's been telling people about it because he said, I want to be as transparent as possible. But again, it's not in this Texas magazine nor in our little resolution book because it's just not, that's not the way we've ever done it.
Yeah.
Well, we could go down a big old rabbit hole chasing that one.
Yeah.
If we really wanted to discuss it. I think everyone in this room knows which way they're going to be voting on that.
Yeah.
So, one of the cool ones I thought was Resolution 2. What do y'all think about that? Where the past master gets a jewel.
Yeah, let me read that too. Resolution number 2, Article 272 and Article 273 be amended to read, if the master has to leave the East, the past master who takes over the East may keep his past master jewel on. Submitted by Thomas F. Boone, Anson Jones Lodge, 1416.
And I like the reasoning because, like at the Grand Lodge, when the Grand Master leaves the East, he's not wearing the hat anymore, but he's still wearing his jewel. And the past Grand Master has to take his spot, who has a jewel of his own.
And I think
So
it makes sense because the past master's jewel in some jurisdictions includes the square, so you're good on that, right? So the master's jewel is actually already part of it. In some jurisdictions, it doesn't, right? It's just the compasses and the arc radius of the angles. I'm blanking on what it's actually called. I want to call it a protractor, but I know it's not. But the past master's jewel symbolizes that you were a master at one point. So,
have you guys ever seen
Pennsylvania
anyone
has
wear
a special
one?
jewel.
Yes.
Say that again.
I've never seen anyone. I've never seen anyone wear a past master's jewel. Have you guys ever seen that? Is it just not a tradition in our lodge that I haven't caught traveling yet, or
It is
Yeah,
not
I've
a
seen it in other
tradition.
jurisdictions.
Yeah, it's not in most lodges in Texas.
Yeah.
yeah?
What I've seen is that there are some lodges that will have a past master's jacket pocket jewel, right? Like I think Gray Lodge has a past master's jewel that they wear from the pocket, but it's not a collar jewel. Which it would be kind of neat to see a collar jewel for a past master.
Yeah, in this resolution, this wouldn't be something you'd wear in the public. This is like literally a collar jewel that you wear in open lodge. And the reason it kind of caught my attention is I thought that'd be a neat way to build, some continuity between the current master and his past masters, because you could rotate that jewel. Your junior past master could wear it all the time, or the worshipful master could go up, very well knowing he's going to be there the whole meeting and say, hey, brother so and so, do you mind wearing this jewel just in case I have to step out?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Although it would be really cool for each outgoing master to be given a collar with a past master's jewel on it, and they just bring that to meetings.
Yeah, and I think because it would be well within your rights as a past master to buy your own and wear it all the time if you want. But I think it'd be cool for a lodge to have one in their arsenal of jewels to assign. You know what I mean? Have somebody that wears it.
Right. That's a cool idea. I like it. I know in our lodge traditionally our past masters wear plain white apron, and it's not necessarily mentioned so much. But in some lodges, a good chunk is past masters, and they're very proud of it. So you see a lot of past master aprons. Everyone having a jewel may add a level of mystery, especially the younger master masons or BAs.
Yeah.
Yep.
That'd be really cool. And especially it gets kind of hairy with Texas because as far as I am aware, which is the disclaimer, we don't really have an official past master's jewel design or even an official past master's emblem, right?
Yeah.
And so the past master's apron, like nobody's 100% sure as to what that's actually supposed to look like. And it's mostly just up to your lodge to decide what's acceptable and what's not acceptable within the framework that the Grand Lodge has set, which is very minimal. So there's a lot of flexibility in there. Or maybe a lack of flexibility. I'm not sure. It depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, and that's the only hang up I can see is that but I'm sure he's implying the square maybe with the compasses. and the quadrant, but sometimes you have just the square. I mean, just the compasses and the quadrant for a past master emblem.
Mm-hmm.
But I would think it would be one of those two.
Yeah.
No,
All right.
I'm sitting here reading through these, and it's a pretty boring lineup. There's not a lot of fireworks because it's like a lot of house cleaning and our laws, redistricting and things like that. The only other one that jumped out to me was the one about the debit and credit cards. Did y'all see that one?
Yeah, I
What
did
number
see
is
that
that
on
one?
14.
14.
Yeah, yeah.
Resolution 14, amend Article 311 by adding paragraph number 2 about credit and debit cards, submitted by Thomas W. Ellison, Milam number 2.
Yeah, so apparently, I guess they're just clarifying that you can use credit cards or debit cards, because it's hard for me to think that Grand Lodge is coming in and stopping people from paying their dues with a debit card
That would
or
be
credit
Well, on
card.
there,
scary.
it it looked like it also clarified. It said that lodges can charge a service fee for those using credit cards, which we had talked about offline in a different conversation. Actually, there's an issue with in Texas. You're not supposed to charge a service fee for using a credit card.
Yeah,
Um, but it looked like it also formally said that lodges can then break up dues to make it easier for members to pay them out in like quarterly or monthly installments.
yeah.
And just to be clear, the statement on you're not using service fees for credit cards, that is a Texas state law, not Masonic law. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can
it refers
offer
back to retail operations.
you can
Yeah.
offer a discount for using cash, or for using. You can offer a discount for using certain methods of payment, but you can't offer.
Right.
You can't make an increase. So. I thought that was
No,
kind of
and
interesting.
I've read that law before, because I think we had this discussion on Facebook, to where the law does read to where it's kind of murky, that it implies that only cash or check, I think, could be taken.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't think Grand Lodge is coming at. I could be mistaken because it's up for resolution, but I'm pretty for sure they're coming out with a website that will allow us to take credit card and debit cards for dues.
Yeah.
So
Maybe that's part of the reason for the resolution is their website launching.
it could be just to clarify that, so there's no hiccups about it. But again, that's something that could be done with a Grand Master's decision. That's clarification. But that's really, there was one about who can preside over degrees.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
Is that a holdover from
And the
last year?
No, that one actually, was it a holdover? No, that's not a holdover. It would be in holdovers, but I know that one got amended because it just clarifies some things in that law, but still is basically the same as it's always been. Because originally proposed, if I'm not mistaken, or was going to be, that only Master Masons can work in a degree. So like an EA couldn't be a Master of Ceremonies for an EA degree. But it's not that way anymore.
That would handicap a lot of smaller lodges. It's lodges of our size maybe wouldn't have a problem with it, but I know a lot of times getting your EAs involved in EA work keeps them tied in to the craft and helps them learn their memory work. So,
Yeah.
that I don't know if I could support something like that.
No, and I get it. That's the thing. My deal though is educate, don't legislate, to where I understand where he's coming from, that they probably threw an EA in as senior warden that shouldn't have been there. But we've all been to degrees that we've seen a Master Mason that shouldn't have been there, that didn't know his stuff.
Oh, man.
So a lodge needs to be responsible and put somebody there that knows the work, even if he is an EA, because it is possible. Shouldn't be their primary focus. They could be that guy.
Yeah, some EAs just get it immediately. And so some guys take a little bit longer. So
no, and they can't confer it, which I do agree with that. I don't know, it seems more official if the degree is conferred by Master Mason of that lodge. So that one, that'll stay the same.
Yeah.
I do have to say I'm interested to hear how the recommendations from the Grand Master go, because both of them are kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, those were good ones.
Yeah, the first one, it changes it to where district instructors no longer have to be past masters. And members of Grand Lodge, they can be any Master Mason who is proficient with the lectures of the first 3 degrees in the esoteric work.
I like that idea. It's interesting. I think, I don't know if there's a whole lot of inherent, when it comes to instruction, I don't know if there's a lot of inherent value to becoming a past master and stuff like that. Because as far as esoteric instruction goes, being a past master is a great requirement for things like DDGMs and grand officers, because it shows that you have been through the positions of leadership. But for esoteric instruction, you don't necessarily have to be a leader or even have any leadership skills to do that. So
that's a great point, because you shouldn't call your DI to ask a Grand Lodge law question, or I say you shouldn't call. That's not their duty. An administrative question. That's a DDGM question. Who has been there, done that? The DI should know the work, and it doesn't matter if you've been a worshipful master or not. You can memorize that work. So I think that's a great one. That would open the door for a few A certificates who aren't past masters to be DIs.
Right.
Although I don't think we'll see a lot of those.
No, there's not.
Right. And then the second recommendation is that a service fee of $20 applies to entered apprentices and fellow crafts annually if they don't complete their proficiency in time.
I thought that was interesting. I have mixed feelings on that.
So I think, if anything, first thing that jumps out to me, it should be a minimum fee of $20. So a lodge could be free to set that more if they desired. But in the end, I think it should be a lodge can or could, whatever the proper word is, and shouldn't be shall set a fee kind of thing. Open up the door to let us do that if we so desire, but don't mandate it kind of thing. Because $20, I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
That should at least be $100. If we're going to charge them a fee, let's charge them a fee.
I think the good rule of thumb would be it should be whatever your degree fee for that degree is,
or maybe whatever your dues are, a year of dues.
That'd be kind of see, and I wouldn't
which
go
some
that
may be
far.
$20. Some might be $20, guys. So, but
well,
no,
and here's
I think
the
that's
thing.
fair if they're participating.
Well, if you're going to do it, because if you're right, to me it should be a tiered thing, because as an entered apprentice, you have so many rights as a master mason or as a mason, or privileges. I should say you can be buried as a mason, but we're not obligated to help, nor are you obligated to help other masons. But as a fellow craft, you are. And then as a master mason, you're even obligated to help more than just the brother, and their widows and orphans. So, there should maybe be a tiered, but it should be up to the lodge, because maybe they don't want to. They think it's going to deter EAs to where they just say, okay, I'm demitting, and you lose them all together.
Right.
To where we have EAs that, it's a good example. He spent 3.5 years as an EA and has progressed now. Would he have demitted altogether had he been paying a fee? Probably not, but a lodge may choose that would be the case for their area. So, you know what I'm saying? To add in you got to charge 20 and 20 only. That seems like that one needs to be amended.
Right. Yeah, because the way it reads is shall require payment of a service fee of $20.
Yeah, and an additional service fee of $20 shall be paid. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I'm not totally against the sentiment, but there should be a lot more flexibility in that.
Yeah, because if it feels like it's from on high, someone's going to have a problem with it. I thinking that the Grand Lodge is mandating how you're going to run things down to that small of a level. It could be a little hard to swallow for some lodges.
Yeah, and I do know the Grand Master said all that $20 would go to the lodge that's charging the fee. Nothing would go back to Grand Lodge. So it's not a, money grab by Grand Lodge by any stretch.
If anything,
for me, though,
would honestly help a lot of lodges that really do need the help. So
absolutely, and that's why I say ideally it should be the lodge can or
and
could
set what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't even put a minimum to where if you don't want to do it, you don't. Because some lodges may not have a problem with that at all, so they don't need to even worry about it. So, but it is what it is.
I wanted to ask a couple of timing-based questions, right? So just a bunch of when questions. So when is the Grand Lodge communication? And the answer to that, for anyone that doesn't know, is the third week of January. So this year it is going to be the 18th through the 20th, all right, of January. And it lasts 3 days. So when does voting usually take place, Rhit?
Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday.
Yeah. Usually you're done Saturday. Was it 1 o'clock that we?
Usually by
No.
noon-ish.
Yeah, because we have to vote on the officers at a certain point, and usually everything's done by then. Maybe a few committee reports.
When is installation of grand officers done?
That's mid-afternoon, so I think they had that set for like 2 o'clock Saturday.
So 2 o'clock on Saturday. It's basically the last thing that gets done before they close the Grand Lodge.
Yes.
So the officers, are they voted on Friday or Saturday? Like
Saturday.
Late morning.
Okay.
Or early afternoon, I think.
Yeah. So the elections, that'll be like, we fix that time by a resolution when we get there, but it's usually like 10:30 or something like that.
Okay, because I know there's 3 brothers that are running for Grand Junior Warden.
Yep.
That was actually going to be my next question was, who is running for Grand South?
Grand South.
And
where are those?
And so I have a list here, and the gentlemen who have made themselves available for the Grand South / Grand Junior Warden, because you run for the lowest position in the progressive line, are Bart Henderson, Kenneth Curry, Ken Curry, and Randall Smallwood. So
you bring up an interesting point, because do you know that you can run for Grand Master? You don't have to run for the Grand South.
You technically can, yes.
Yeah.
That is true.
Just doesn't happen.
I was going to say, you can. Will it go well for you? Probably not. But
yeah. You can run for any position you want. As long as you remember.
Let's have Rhit try.
No, thank you.
Well, and I thought there was a rule in Grand Lodge law that at the lodge level, I thought you had to serve at least 1 year as a warden before you can take over as worshipful master.
Yes, that is true.
I thought I had read that somewhere. Right. So that's interesting that doesn't apply at the grand level.
Yeah, I've never seen that law applied, to the Grand Lodge. Although you'd be biting off a lot if you went straight to the Grand East.
Mm.
Right.
So a little bit of background on at least 2 of them. I don't know Brother Smallwood personally or anything like that. So I don't have as much background on him. I know that he's a former DDGM, and he's gotten the Golden Trowel and all that. But and this is what drives me up the wall for the Blue Lodge stuff, is that they never list any of the appendant body past leadership, right? So it doesn't say here, but Ken Curry, right? Brother Ken is he's the director or the superintendent of the Fort Worth Scottish Rite Valley, right? Which
Yeah.
Right.
that's
I
pretty
think the actual
significant.
title is personal.
Mhm.
I think the actual title is personal representative to the Sovereign General and our Sovereign Grand Inspector General
That's
of
what it is.
the Orient of Texas.
Yes, he's the personal representative, and like that's kind of a big deal, right?
Yeah. I
Um,
don't think they can legally list
it's
that.
because it's not Blue Lodge. It's not
Yeah.
Blue Lodge, so they can't disclose it, right? But I think that's a big deal. So for anyone that doesn't know, Ken Curry is the personal representative of the SGIG in Texas at Fort Worth Scottish Rite Valley, and then Brother Henderson is a past Grand Commander of the Grand Commandery of Texas. So that's also kind of like a huge deal. So it's one of those things like, hey, like let's not talk about this, but yes, please, let's actually talk about this. So
No, and you'll see it. It may very well come down to an appendant body you're a part of,
yeah, and
whether
honestly,
you
I
get voted
firmly
in.
I firmly believe that you should be allowed to disclose, like if you've hit something at the national level or at the grand level in another body, you should probably be allowed to disclose that, just because that does show leadership and everything like that. But then again, anybody who cares about that probably already knows that, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing that because I get the impression sometimes that it is, York Rite versus Scottish Rite, or the Shrine versus, the other body. And it, especially at Grand Lodge, I mean, it should be strictly Blue Lodge, but
Mhm.
you should be an informed voter.
So I wanted to ask then, so if tradition prevails, who is going to be Grand Master this year? And the answer to that is the Right Worshipful, theoretically soon to be most worshipful Tommy F. Chapman, who is currently the deputy. He's the deputy Grand Master. So that's just kind of one of those little checkbox questions. Chance Chapman recently posted on Facebook that he wanted to remind people that he is not the deputy Grand Master of the state of Texas, because that is his father. Not, Chance is in Grand Commandery. Tommy F is in Grand Lodge. So, but what activities are there before and after the Grand Lodge sessions on a daily basis?
So, let's see, Thursday, I don't know of anything. That Friday night is the big event there at the backyard. I think
Ooh,
this is year 3 for that. Is it? Or is this the
I think
second
it's the
year?
second year.
Anywho, that was a blast. Brother Brendan Jenkins comes and plays music, and he is a fantastic musician. And we get our own little private area to where we, you know, go buy our drinks and sit up and smoke cigars and wax philosophy. I know I had a great time last year.
I heard a couple brothers, more than a couple brothers, say some variant of how we ended up getting more masonry done at the backyard after hours than in Grand Lodge itself. That might be not legalistically, but definitely fraternally. I think so.
No, yeah, and I think that kind of sums up the event very well, because there was a lot of networking going on. You get a chance to meet people from all across the state and catch up with guys that you may have seen last year, or whatever. But sat and talked with David Bendel for quite some time about best practices, what we were doing, and ideas we had that we want to pursue, and bounced them off each other and got a fresh perspective on things.
Yeah, it was really cool. I guess who would y'all say that for each of you? Who would you say, or I guess and I'm gonna expand this to other grand bodies as well. Who would you say that you've met at Grand Communications that has kind of really stuck with you? Like somebody that you don't normally interact with, but you walked away going, "Oh man, that's really cool."
Um, Man, I don't know that actually happened at Grand Lodge, but it was interacting with Grand Lodge for me. Because one year I contacted the finance committee to ask if you could amend the budget from the floor, the Grand Lodge budget, yearly budget. And I
Why
got,
would you want to do that?
of course well, because I had some ideas on how to improve the budget. And he said, no, you can't amend it from the floor, but I would love to have your ideas. So I had the spreadsheet all ready to go and emailed it over to him. And he sent back immediately that he liked a lot of the ideas and invited me to their finance committee meeting where they were planning the budget for the new year. I didn't get to add a lot to it. I was more of a fly on the wall, but I got to see and learn so much about the process and how things work and how important those committees are, because the Grand Master or incoming Grand Master was there to plead his case on where he wanted money to go in the budget. And there were things that he wanted that he didn't get because the money just wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And so those activities that he really wanted to do weren't able to be done. And it was a real eye opener at how, it's so easy to sit back in an armchair and complain about what Grand Lodge is doing and all this, but you don't see all the nuts and bolts that go into it and all the ideas that they had that couldn't come to fruition because of either budget or time or manpower, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
So that guy's name was Claude Irvin. He's pretty popular dude down there at Grand Lodge. So I see him there every year and, always say hello to him. But that changed my perspective on Grand Lodge drastically.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. As a perspective shifter.
Yeah, but other than that, I just love going down and meeting people that I talk to on Facebook every year and have never met. Ken Lotman from Tyler area. We finally, we talked on Facebook a whole lot and finally met down there and had a good conversation.
Obviously he's up in our neck of the woods, but the first time I met David Bindle was at Grand Lodge, and so I thought that was a really cool experience, and it kind of opened the door for me to want to go visit and explore, a little bit more in our neck of the woods and have fun with that. I guess I would also say I got to meet a bunch of really cool people at Grand Chapter and Grand Council. John Spann is one of the guys that I met through, I guess that was technically through a commandery inspection, but I see him at Grand Chapter and Grand Council, and I'm going to probably see him at Grand Lodge, so I'm excited about that. So, stellar guy.
Yeah, and before I forget, too, another event that happens Saturday morning is the 64th District Breakfast.
Yes.
At George's Cafe or George's Cafe?
George's.
Yeah,
what
and it's
time
like in the
is
little
the
banquet
breakfast,
hall.
Rhit?
6 a.m., baby.
So not a normal person time. Okay, just wanted to confirm that.
And it's
How's
a
that
good
not
chance.
a Norway?
So that's a horrible time to have a breakfast. But anyway, yeah.
It is hard to make the backyard event all night and that, but you just got, this happens once a year. You're going to get 4 hours of sleep. That's just the way it is.
4 hours of sleep? That sounds like a lot.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
But that Masonic breakfast is a great chance to meet brothers of the 64th District and beyond, because, I think last year we had 8 past Grand Masters there. Quite a few of the Grand Lodge officers in the Grand Line.
Mm.
And you get a chance to just kind of shake their hand and say hello.
Which that's kind of cool.
Grand Lodge. Yeah, it's hard to do it at Grand Lodge.
How's the food down there at Grand Lodge, Rhett? Do they have a on-site food for lunch? You got to go off-site? Where is the place to go?
We typically go off-site just to kind of break it up. I know Waco 92 did barbecue sandwiches last year, which sold out pretty quick. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they didn't sell out. But it's, if you eat there, it's decent. But we typically will go out and, like last year, we went and had tacos somewhere and you end up seeing 8 or 10 guys from Grand Lodge at that restaurant, no matter where you go, and strike up a conversation.
There's a killer Italian place that's only a couple of blocks away from the Grand Lodge building, which, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, if we haven't mentioned it, the Grand Lodge is located in Waco, Texas. I don't think we mentioned that specifically, but there's a great Italian restaurant, like 4 blocks from the Grand Lodge building.
Yes.
And then everyone usually stays wherever they can. It's kind of a nightmare in terms of finding places to stay.
And another thing we didn't mention is that if it is hot, no worries, because it's air conditioned now.
Oh yeah, we have that insane looking air conditioner. It looks like a giant tube that
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to describe. The air conditioner is a giant tube that goes all around the room, and it's made out of cloth, and it just blasts cold air out of the tube. It still gets pretty warm in there.
It can. And I also heard we're going to have a new sound system there as well.
Oh, that's
remember
gonna be
last
really
year?
helpful.
Yeah, that tube was right in front of the speakers, so there were times that it was hard to hear what they were saying. But
Let's see. Something that was on my mind. What activities are there for the ladies to get involved in if you bring your wife or girlfriend or whatever? Anyone know? Because I've been asking, and everyone's like, "Yeah, like bring your girlfriend," and I'm going, pretty sure she doesn't want to go.
yeah,
I know there's a banquet on Thursday night, and I've reached out to the Grant Secretary's office, and there are still tickets available. And I think that's $35 a person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the banquet is the 2018 Grand Lodge Awards banquet, and that's in the Lee Lockwood Memorial Building. Let's see, they're doing the WB and Brandon Carroll Humanitarian Award, the William Beck Award, the Grandmaster Award of Merit, and the prestigious Sam Houston Medal. So that's kind of cool.
There's not a whole lot for the ladies to do. Like in the pamphlet, we got everything in red they can go to, which is just basically open events. So like installation and a few little honorary things, all day Thursdays open.
Yeah.
And then when we meet, they on their own. So, speaking from my wife's point of view, she ain't have nothing to do with it because she knows that night I'm going to be out talking to the boys, doing our nerd thing. So she usually goes and stays the night with her grandmother or brother or something like that and just does a family thing.
Yeah, I don't see my wife getting into going down to Grand Lodge. Probably not going to happen. She might call your wife though. Go hang out, or Craig's or somebody's.
So the one of
That's
the
not a
things
bad
that I
idea.
noticed is that, and this is again coming from a Yorkite perspective, but since the Yorkite's smaller, everybody kind of knows everybody, and when everybody kind of knows everybody, all their wives and girlfriends know everybody else's wives and girlfriends, right?
Yeah.
And so they actually, it's really cool because at the functions that I've been to, like the ladies do, like they hang out together and everything like that, and they get involved with each other actively, and there's friendships and stuff that get formed, which is super cool. I guess there's a lot. There's also a few little more things to do in that area as well. But as far as extracurriculars go that aren't Masonic that are available for the ladies to attend, the open events, and then I guess explore Waco.
The Dr. Pepper Museum.
I mean, they got that super cool prison museum somewhere around there, right?
Right. At the Grand Lodge leadership training program, though, it was actually really cool because they did have a formal separate curriculum or program for the ladies. It's kind of surprising that they don't have something more organized for the Grand Lodge.
I would love to see something like that.
They used to do that in years past. It just never really caught on. You know what I mean?
I'm right.
Yeah, I know Donnie Broughton's year, they had a very comprehensive women's program. And it never was as popular. And I'm sure it boiled down to money and manpower kind of thing. It may come back in the future when, things of value are there for our wives that have been created that they could participate in, because the leadership training made it fun for them. But of course, also we went to the one in Corpus. You got to remember that.
Right there on the beach.
Right there on the beach in Corpus compared
That's pretty
to
cool.
at the Hella Shrine in the middle of Garland, because you get bored at Corpus, you can run down and go eat on the ocean.
Right. And you're in a hotel, not, a lodge building or temple.
A beautiful hotel. Yeah. So it's got a different feel to it. That's why I love going there for it. But yeah, they do a good job with the women's program nonetheless. But Grand Lodge is just a different animal, you know. It is Masonic C-SPAN, and it's just hard to shift gears, and do a women's program and that kind of business at the same time.
So I guess kind of in general, why would you say that it's important to attend the after hours and before hours stuff like the backyard and the breakfast? Like,
That's what magic happens.
It's fun, but what makes it important?
Well, I mean, that's where the magic happens, because if you're going just to, party and have a beer or whatever, you're going to have a good time. But if you go and have a drink with a brother and talk about some of the things you're doing in lodge and some of the things they're doing, you're going to see how you can meld a little bit of what they're doing into what you're doing and vice versa. And we all get to be stronger Masons in lodges by this networking, because I know we had discussion about dues at Grand Lodge before, in the after hours deal, which eventually led us to where we are. Many, many different conversations about our Big Brother program. I mean, you name it. The sidebar I've had with David has kind of got me thinking about monthly stated meetings. Do we need monthly stated meetings? And I don't know when I would have had that idea, if ever, had I not been networking with my brothers. And that's key, man. If you want to grow your lodge and get some good ideas, go out and network. And, a good question to ask, how much are your dues? And watch where that question goes.
You might make some people mad, as has been.
Well, yeah. And if that's the wrong guy to be talking to, because whether it's 65 or whether it's like ours, 365, there's a conversation to be had in there, whether that's working for them or it's not. They're trying to raise it. That's just a small example of what you could do. What's your average age? There's a bunch of different questions you can ask your brothers to get conversations going.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I have had a great discussion. I hope y'all did too. It's getting to be that time, so I'm going to give y'all the Fraternal Quote of the week. And this week's quote is, "There are no strangers in Freemasonry, only friends you've yet to meet." And that is from our illustrious brother, Dave Thomas, 33rd degree Grand Cross, and the founder of Wendy's.
That's perfect, man. That is perfect, because I can't imply that enough, that don't go down there shy. Just get ready to meet guys. They're going to love to, introduce yourself to anybody and everybody, because they're going to love to meet you.
Yeah, I want to reread that again. There are no strangers in Freemasonry, only friends you've yet to meet. And it's
so true.
It's so true of everything that I've gone and done at like a state level function. It's so true. You just run into people and you're just like, I can't believe I've never known this person, So I'm just a huge fan of it. So, gentlemen, closing thoughts?
So, closing thoughts. Let's find each other. Let's meet. Let's hang out, whether we meet at Grand Lodge or whether we meet at the backyard or at the 64th breakfast. You will find every single one of us posting something on Texas Freemasons. And if we haven't, post on there and tag us. Say, hey, what are y'all doing? Where are you at Grand Lodge right now? We can meet down at the merch tables, wherever. You know, I want to meet folks, because with the agenda we have, we're going to have a lot of free time. I don't see a need to be in there to vote on redistricting. You know, that's going to happen. So we're going to have a lot of free time. So let's meet.
Yeah, come find
Get
us.
down there, whether you're a master mason or, you know, past master, whatever. Come on down. And if you can't make it Friday, come down Friday night, stay for that event, a little bit Saturday, head back home. You know, it's just right there in Waco. You don't have to commit to the whole thing. But either way, find us.
Grant, how about you?
Looking forward to my first Grand Lodge year. Like Brett said, meeting people is probably the most exciting part. People that we talk to online, you rarely get to see. And that's going to be a lot of fun for the second season of our podcast. And looking forward to the new year.
Billy, how about you?
Pretty much, you know, what Grant said, this is going to be my first Grand Lodge communication. So I'm very excited to go down, see how everything works, see, you know, how laws and resolutions are passed, but definitely more excited to meet new brothers. Every time I've gone, you know, outside of my home areas and traveled, I've met a lot of really excellent brothers, had some great conversation, had some great times, right? Whether it's just talking over a meal or over a few drinks, it's always been well worth the experience. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm super psyched about it. It's, you know, it's my second year going, but this time I've got a little bit more experience and I know a lot more people. And I'm just excited to see old faces and new faces and just have a great time. I'm also just really excited to get started again with season 2 of the Fort Worth 148 podcast. Super psyched about that. So it's, you know, this is our sophomore effort. Let's hope it goes well.
Amen.
Yeah, but, you know, y'all, if you want to contact us, our website is www.fortworth148.org. We are at Fort Worth Lodge 148 on Facebook. Our email is info148@fortworth148.org. If you live in the 64th District of the Grand Lodge of Texas and you want to promote an event, please reach out to them at 64th.org. That's 64th.org.
All right, bros, I've had a good time. I guess we'll shut this thing down.
Sound to you, brothers.
You as well. This is Rhit Moore signing off.
Grant Gates signing off.
This is Billy Hamilton signing off.
And this is Gabriel Jagush signing off.